Let's talk about instancing. Now, in this case, I'm specifically talking about something called instance static meshes. There's other things called instancing in games and game development that I'm really not going to get into today. So because of the way that I'm building things, I'm duplicating a lot of the same objects over and over. And because of this, I got a recommendation a while back to look into something called static mesh instances. If you don't know what that is, then I'll give you like a quick description of it. I don't want to get like too into the nitty gritty. There's a lot of videos out there that go over the topic much better than I ever could. So, yeah. In Unreal, most of the objects you put into your scene are called actors. Essentially, every actor you put into your scene is storing a certain amount of information, and it tells the game exactly like where and how to render these things onto your screen. Now, the more actors you put in there, the more this adds up because the game has to take into account all of this information for every single actor, every single object. Even if you're duplicating the same object, the game will still see it as a separate object and still need to read all of that information again. What instancing allows you to do is essentially tell the game these things are the same and they're going to use a lot of the same things. The only thing you need to take into account is just like the most basic of transform information, location, rotation, and scale. Now, there are some drawbacks and stuff to doing this and like some workarounds to those drawbacks, but like all that is beyond the scope of what I'm going to talk about here. So, woo, yeah, go instancing. Yeah. See, now if anybody asked if you learned something today, you can be honest with them and say, no, not even a little bit. Like, this guy's dumb. He has no idea what he's talking about. So after looking into it, I realized that I actually have played with instancing stuff in the past, but never for like optimization purposes. I've always done it for more like procedurally generated stuff. So for example, say you had like a fan and you didn't know how many blades you wanted it to have immediately. So you could procedurally add more blade instances later on, or you could make a ladder and you didn't know how tall you wanted it to be. So you could add more rung instances and make it as tall as you wanted. Or you could make a fence as long as you wanted, or a wall as wide as you wanted. These are the things that I used instancing for in the past. This being said, the reasons that I want to use instancing now are different than that, and this is a little out of my wheelhouse, like really out of my wheelhouse, so it's taking me some homework to really figure it all out. So Unreal does a really great job of letting you just like drag and duplicate around a bunch of objects, whatever you want. It makes it really easy to do, makes it really like relatively quick, I guess, which is kind of the way I was working. But like I said before, these are not instances, it's duplicates. You can do the same thing inside of a blueprint with instances, but it is nowhere near as straightforward or intuitive. It's kind of a pain in the butt. I just can't do it that way. I made a blueprint that allowed me to procedurally place things, but it is just so cold and like calculated and just wrong, and it is impossible for me to work in that way. It's just really difficult to like, let's say I wanted to change this window but not that window, or this wall but not that wall. It's just really hard to do that with procedural generation type blueprints. Not impossible, mind you, just difficult. What ideally would work for me would be to be able to place things in the map however I wanted, and then select them all and say, hey, find all the ones that are the same and turn them into instances instead of duplicates. That would be the best. It turns out this tool does exist in Unreal Engine 5, and we're in Unreal Engine 4. So I decided, screw it, why not? Let's upgrade our project. Let's go into Unreal 5. So I did a thing. I downloaded it. I got my project upgraded, I popped it open, freaking compiled all my shaders, and it did not work. It didn't work at all again. Like, dude, my frames for some odd reason were just like cut down like by over half. It was insane. It wasn't working out. I looked into it a little bit. I found out that you can try doing some things like disabling lumen, changing the way your shadow maps are freaking made or streamed or whatever, and nothing was working. And it turns out this is actually a common problem when you upgrade project from 4 to 5. For some odd reason, it just doesn't work super fantastic. I don't know why, but it wasn't worth it to me just for this one asset. So I figured let's go back to 4. Let's figure some freaking crap out. Now there is another option in Unreal Engine 4 that I was trying to avoid just because of the way that it kind of works. So what it does is it takes all of the different meshes and it combines them into a single actor. This is different than the instances because it's literally combining them into a single mesh and combines all their texture sheets into a single texture. And it's not the way I wanted to do things. But at this point, you know, I was frustrated, so I figured let's give it a shot. So I grab everything, all the parts of my building, click merge actors, and I look up and I see these 3 buttons. I'm like, well, what are these things, right? I don't remember any of these. So I highlight this and I read it. It says harvest geometry from selected actors and merge grouping them by materials. I'm like, okay, yeah, that sounds about right. It sounds like what I want to do. Harvest geometry from selected actors and merge them into a single mesh. Well, that sounds interesting. That sounds like what I want to do as well. And what does this last one over here say? It says harvest geometry from selected actors and merge them into an actor with multiple instance static mesh components. And I'm like, what? This whole thing was here the entire friggin' time, and I had no idea. I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to take all my things and make them into an instance actor. I'm like, oh man, you guys, y'all have no idea how much time I put into trying to figure this crap out, just to not realize that it was there the entire time. So yeah, that's what we're doing. That's what we did. And it works, I guess. You know, I'm sure there's something wrong with it that I don't know about, but we'll burn that bridge when we get to it. So yeah, I mean, that's one step figured out, I guess. You know, ever since then, I've more or less just been going through and trying to put some levels together, like go from the gray box phase to something a little more pretty. It's a process, even with the instancing stuff. I mean, especially with the instancing stuff. It's just taking me some time. So, you know, yeah, that's what I'm working on now. You know, sorry if it seems like we haven't covered as much ground as we normally do between videos, but you know, sometimes that's just the way it is. We'll get there though. I think I'm ready to move on from maps for a little bit. I want to do, kind of want to work on my AI, actual gameplay stuff. So maybe we'll do that next time. That's also something I'm a little bit more familiar with. So, you know, hopefully progress there goes a little bit quicker. But yeah.
Meanwhile, in other news.
So my super awesome drop dead gorgeous wife is still competing in this Inked Magazine Cover Girl contest. So far, they've narrowed down her group to like the top 20, and she's been in like the top 1 and 2 spots, just like back and forth nonstop. At the moment, there's a little less than 3 days left until the end of this round, and then the top 20 gets cut down to the top 15. She's also started uploading to YouTube, so if you want to go see some of her funny stuff, go look her up. Go check her out at TitsMcGee1212. And look, man, like, to be clear, there's no pressure, like, at all, you know. But if you love me, you'll go vote for my wife.
Or else.
But yeah, I mean, that's all we got for today. I got some work to do, so, you know, y'all take it easy.
Do, do, do.